I think it's important because a lot of the sort of reforms around disability are about sort of basic needs, which include things like the need to be social, the need to have employment and education, the need to have sexual relationships, that kind of thing. And so I think that that concept of basic need is not really acknowledged. Well, I guess high school for a lot of people with disabilities is still really challenging, just because, teenagers are not always very accepting, but also a lot of people with disabilities don't have access to proper supports when they're at that stage of their life. I've had experiences with dating and stuff where people will sort of say, oh, I would go out with you, but, and there's always something that they're not really comfortable with in relation to my disability, and so, that's tricky, I guess.
Robin Archer, Creative Director of the Centenary of Canberra. I think the arts generally are terrific for anyone. All forms of arts, making music, dancing, theatre, film, whatever you do, I think it allows a kind of freedom of expression, and I think people with disabilities deserve that as much as anyone else. Sometimes that can just be of personal benefit. You can just see people who start out and get more and more confidence in their performing just grow as human beings within that, despite any disability they may have or recognise in themselves. The way they are able to educate audiences. When you look at these performers and instantly an audience has a kind of perception of, oh, what are they going to do, and then find them appreciating and admiring them as much as they do any apparently fully able performer in another performance, you start to feel that that's actually breaking down audience prejudice and barriers in the same ways.
I'm Carly Findlay and I'm aged 30. I think that through telling my own story, it's helping people realise that, there's, they get to know me before they make a judgment, I guess, whereas in public, off the internet, I get the judgment before they get to know me. So that's really broken down barriers. I've had people email me to tell me that they've read my blog with their children to talk about how it's important to celebrate diversity, and they'll say that now their children understand diversity a bit more and understand the need for acceptance and inclusion. I think that it definitely can give people a way to connect that they haven't connected before. I know people that are very unwell and can't leave the house or hospital much, and they're able to keep into contact with their friends. It can also help people to find out other, connections with other people with the same conditions or disabilities.
Damien Griffiths, Executive Officer, First Peoples Disability Network Australia. Well, we definitely need greater focus on support for Aboriginal people with disability across Australia. It's still the case that very few Aboriginal people with disability access the disability service system. This is despite the fact that there's very high rates of disability in Aboriginal communities. But not just access to disability services, there's a number of things I'd like to see. I'd like to see better recognition of the important role that Aboriginal family members and Aboriginal carers play in the lives of Aboriginal people with disability, and valuing that. But I think also it's about recognising that Aboriginal people with disability have a rightful place within their own communities and the wider community, and it's our role as, it's the role of government, it's the role of service providers, it's the role of everybody to support that.
My name is Sue Salthouse and I am 63. Women with disabilities have the same carer roles and same difficulties getting into the workforce as their non-disabled friends, but there are extra challenges when you have to manage your equipment needs and your access needs and your transport needs, as well as getting your children into childcare and getting the shopping and the meals done. So I think on that very practical level, women experience disabilities very differently. I think the one thing I would do would be to say to people, give us a job. Because employment empowerment is really important for everybody with disabilities.
For me, it's about really giving people the opportunity and recognising what ability they have rather than seeing what they can't do, and just trying to create the space for them to contribute, because not only does it build self-esteem, but it's really valuable for us as a country as well. But I also think it makes good economic sense for businesses to be involved, because the more people with disability who are employed and not reliant on welfare, the more viable the economy becomes. But most importantly, I think it gives every individual in this country who's employed a sense of self-worth and value, and corporate organisations who have jobs can make that happen.